Hey guys, okay, I think I am live and I want to share this screen. So, we're going to talk about a very popular question, and that is, can you build muscle with light weights? Now, I hope that you guys could see what I'm doing. I'm going to check to see if I am live. So, we're going to get started. Now, this is a very good topic, so I'm going to say if you have, okay, I can see that I'm live. Awesome. Okay, so research, I'm going to read and I'm going to explain as I go, okay? Now, there's research studies that have shown that when you're lifting lighter weights, it can be just as effective as building muscle as lifting heavier weights. So we're going to dive into all of this and why. So in a study published in the Journal of Human Kinetics, researchers found that there was no significant differences in muscle growth between individuals who trained with moderate loads, which was the equivalent of a 10 rep max, to those who trained with low loads, which is the equivalent of 20 rep max. So you could see 10 reps as the most that you could do versus 20. And they saw that there was no difference. All right, cool. I am live. I'm excited. All right. Sorry, guys. So a review of more than 28 studies showed that overall, untrained and recreational lifters who lifted loads that were less, and I'll explain all this if you guys are like going, like getting glazed over all this, less than 60% of their 1 rep max, or a weight that they could do more than 15 reps with experienced similar gains in hypertrophy as those who lifted weights between 60 to 70% of their 1RMs, 1 rep max, and greater than 80% of their 1 rep max. Now, I know this might be a lot of jargon that you might not understand, so I will explain it. I just want you to know that I'm not making all this up. There is research and backing to this. So, however, in these studies, greater hypertrophy results were seen in the untrained, which would be the beginner individuals who lifted lighter loads, than those with more experience. So this is an aside. This is something to note. I'm still going to give you all the good information if you are somebody who has been lifting. Another review of 4 different studies, all of these used experienced lifters, or lifters that have been, doing this for a while, showed that their muscle growth is still possible when lifting lighter weights when sets were taken to failure. And that's really what we're going to talk about. The individuals who trained to failure with lower loads showed similar levels of hypertrophy as those who trained with higher loads and fewer reps. Okay, which means yes, you can. Now, all of these findings suggest that the amount of weight lifted is not the sole contributing factor in muscle gain. So this is exciting news. The participants in these studies performed all of their sets to failure, or they completed at least 20 to 30 reps per set. So I want you guys to understand, like, it's not like light weights and low numbers. It's light weights and high numbers. The key takeaway that it is possible to build muscle with lighter weights as long as you're doing an adequate amount of volume. Like, you have to challenge the muscles to break down. That means doing sets of at least 10 reps, though it's probably going to be more like 15 or more effective building muscle with light weights. All right, now why would you want to lift with light weights? I want to explain why this would be an issue, okay? Number one, you might be coming back from an injury. So if you're coming back from a significant injury that, took you out of working out for a bit, you're going to definitely want to ease into a workout routine with lighter weights. Now, even if you're going to physical therapy to rehab the injury, you're still going to need time to work back up to the strength levels that you were before. When you push too hard, too soon after an injury, that can also result in another injury in that area, or even another area of the body that you're trying to compensate for in the weaker ones. Okay, so that might be an issue. Or maybe you're a beginner. Obviously, we have to start lighter when we're a beginner. So it's good to set goals for yourself. Strive to be as strong as you can be, but you shouldn't be in a rush to see results if you're starting out. Now, newer lifters have the advantage of newbie gains. So if you've never lifted before, you have this advantage, which, all the seasoned lifters are very jealous of. That means that they get stronger and build muscle more quickly at the beginning. But it's not, you can't build a bunch of like 25 pounds of muscle, but you do build it quicker, okay? And that's because their bodies have not adapted yet to the stimuli of lifting weights. So it's a brand new challenge. And they respond by increasing in strength and muscle mass at a faster rate. But as such, there's no need to rush to get stronger and lift heavier when you're a beginner, because it can just lead to burnout and injury, and we don't want to go back to the injury, right? The next reason is maybe you're coming back from a long break from the gym or from workouts itself. So if you haven't been doing the gym workouts or your at-home workouts for many months or even years, this is a common thing for women that go through periods to say, like, you go through pregnancy, you can't work out, so it's like or more than a year, or just you have to take a time off for whatever reason. You can come back, and it will come back a little faster in the second time around. But don't expect to be able to lift what you could before your break. Like, you have to start slower. So that's where you will need to go back to lighter weights. You'll need to take it easy for the first several weeks. Start with lighter weights than you used before. But I know that might be disappointing, but you'll get back again. It'll come back faster the next time around. Your body needs time to get used to working out again before you can start to push heavier weights. All right, you might be training for another sport that requires lighter body weights. So, if you're somebody who's doing endurance sports like marathons, running, or cycling, or something else that you don't need a lot of muscle, you still will benefit from strength training because, you still want to have the muscles, strong muscles. That should always be the goal, but you're going to do this a little bit differently. You might not want to build a lot of muscle mass since the extra weight might slow you down if it's an endurance sport. But at the same time, when you have a low body fat percentage, and more lean mass, that can make you faster and much more efficient. So that's something to take into consideration too. It's not just about losing the weight. While the body fat percentage comes down to diet, lifting light weights, that can ensure that you don't lose too much muscle from all the activity, which is a huge problem for those who are doing the endurance sports and they're not prioritizing training. So you could train with light weights so that you can help build muscular endurance so your muscles are able to sustain activity for a longer period of time. Maybe you don't care about hitting your PRs, your personal, your best, or you're burned out. You might reach a point in your lifting journey where you just don't care about smashing PRs every time you go to the gym. Now, you might lift for enjoyment. You might lift to stay healthy, maybe to look good instead to train for a competition or outlift your buddies. And there's something to be said for the progressive overload and trying to add weight to your lifts consistently. Obviously, this is how we get stronger over time if you are lifting in the heavier load, but don't always have to work out with the goal of being the strongest person in the room, and especially if you've been overly tired, sore, or burned out from exercise lately. That might be a cue that you have to change up the training, and sometimes lifting lighter weights is sufficient enough to keep you in shape while giving your body and your mind the break that they need from that heavy and intense workout. Maybe you're getting older. Now, I work with women over 40. Sometimes we have issues, joint issues. We have old injuries. Aging process creates more challenges. So for most people, strength levels start to plateau and might decrease starting around age 35. Doesn't mean you have to start, decreasing your goals. But that just means that if you're just starting to lift weights for the first time and you're in your mid 30s or older, your strength potential can be much lower than what it would have been when you were younger. But that doesn't mean it won't get stronger, right? You can still get stronger. You just might not be able to lift what you would have been able to lift had you started in your early 20s. But really, that's not, it's not what we're here to talk about. It also takes you a little bit longer to improve your strength, which means more of your training is going to involve lifting relatively lighter weights. And that's why we're talking about this. So even if you've been lifting lighter weights since your 20s, you may notice that your strength levels are no longer what they used to be as you start to approach your 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and so on, right? And I know this might be bruising to your ego, but lifting lighter weights is better than no strength training at all and definitely can lead to a challenge. So even lifting at 60% is enough to prevent sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass and strength, which we want to avoid as much as possible, and the loss of motor control as you age. All right, so how do you build muscle with light weights? So this is what you've been waiting for. Now, if you're lifting with lighter weights, there's several tips you can follow so you can still build muscle. First of all, you're going to lift with a slower tempo because now you have lighter weights. It's not going to challenge you as much at the start. So slow down your tempo is an excellent way to build muscle when we are using lighter weights. The most common way to do this is to slow down the eccentric, which is the lowering phase of each lift. So slow it down on, the lowering part. Some ways you can do this is like a 3-second descent on your squats, like coming down to 3 and pushing up, or maybe a bench press, coming down slower, lowering the bar for 3-second count on deadlifts. And this is where, and if you've ever done workouts like body pump, those are done with the lighter weights because obviously you can't lift that heavy of weights for that extended time period that the workouts last. But that weight over time is going to put on that volume and pressure because of the tempo training. So tempo training is really a beneficial way to build muscle because it helps recruits more of your muscle fibers due to increased time under tension. Okay, so more challenge as you're slowing it down. And that provides more of a stimulus, which allows your muscles to grow even when you're using the lighter weights. Okay, so that's one plus. Incorporating pause. Now, just like slowing down your tempo, when you add a pause to your lifts, it'll increase the time under tension. And that can help build muscle when you're lifting light weights. So for example, you can add a 2-second pause to the bottom of a squat, right? We know how hard that is. Like you sit down in a squat and you hold it, that's a challenge. And then you got to come out of it. So you hold it and then, push back up and then continue to do that. That adds a different challenge. Maybe you hold the top of a hip thrust for 5 seconds before you come down slowly. Or you pause for 2 to 3 seconds with a bar on your chest during a bench press. Like there's many ways to do this. Maybe you increase your sets and reps, another way to challenge it. So when you're lifting lighter weights, you'll need to do more sets and reps so you can achieve the similar stimulus as what you would get if you were lifting heavier. So you're just balancing out the lighter weights with more pressure in a different way. So that means you might have to do sets of like 15, 20, or sometimes even 30 reps. I think there's a volume training method that they promote on 100 reps. 100 reps, like that's a lot of reps. That's going to definitely tax you. Obviously that's just an example, but the point of the building muscle is the challenge. So if it's not about the weights, it's about the tension, the tempo, the volume, the pressure, and in different ways. So you can also train to failure by choosing a weight that's not super heavy, but it'll still allow you to do at least 12 to 15 reps. And that means with proper form, and that last rep has to be a struggle. Like you have to be struggling in the end, whether it's 10 reps or 30 reps, you must be struggling. And you may want to consider increasing the number of sets you do too. Maybe you're doing 3 sets and then you change it to 4, right? And that isn't going to increase your volume, which will build more muscle, even if the overall intensity is lower with the weights. Try doing unilateral, which means one side at a time exercises. I love throwing this into training anyway, because unilateral exercises are the ones that you use like one arm or one leg at a time. And the examples might be like a single arm dumbbell row, a single arm dumbbell bench press, Bulgarian split squats. I'm sure you've done these before, right? Training one side at a time is always going to be more challenging, requires you to use lighter weights because you can't rely on the other side of your body to assist you. So you're already under a challenge, right? Just do this with your body weight, you're probably going to feel it. But you'll also get some added benefits, because I love this, because you're going to improve your muscular imbalances. So we all have a weaker and a stronger side. It helps to balance that out. And it helps your core stability when you're doing the unilateral work, because your core is involved always and a little bit more. Maybe you train more often. So the good thing about when you're lifting lighter weights is that it's less taxing on your central nervous system. And for example, you're doing 12 squats at 60% of your 1 rep max. That's not as fatiguing as doing 5 squats at 80%. And that means you can train more often while still being able to recover properly in between each workout, because you want to be able to recover. That's when you get stronger. So if you're only lifting light weights twice a week and you're not seeing results, then try to increase your strength training days to say 3, 4, or 5 days per week. You can make progress by adding more lifting days into your workout schedule. And with that said, it's still important to have your rest days. Make sure to leave time to focus on other training if you're participating in another sport. But if your schedule allows, increase this frequency of your training can help you build more muscle even if you're lifting with light weights. Number 6, I can't leave this out. Do not neglect your foods, your diets. Regardless of how much weight you're lifting, diet is an essential component of building muscle. You'll still need to eat in a calorie surplus, eating a little bit more calories than you burn through your exercise and non-exercise activities in order to grow muscle. You cannot grow if you're not eating a little bit more, okay? Multiply your body weight by 12 or 13, and then add, say, 150 to 200 extra calories, which will put you in a slight surplus. And if you're lifting weights and you're doing your regular activities, you're not going to gain fat. Trust me, you're going to lose the fat as you build the muscle. So also you want to make sure to eat enough protein each day, which is important because it's necessary to grow muscle. I recommend 0.8 as a minimum to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight each day. So if you weigh 175 pounds, that would be like 140 to 175 grams of protein per day. Last here, use proper form. Now, when you're lifting lightweight, it might be easy to speed through your reps and really not pay attention to your form because the weight's not as challenging as a heavier weight. But even if you're lifting at 60% of your 1 rep max for a certain lift, it is still very important to use a proper form. I want you to make sure you're working the targeted muscles properly. Otherwise, you're going to throw off your body and you're going to be straining other areas. That means make sure you're squatting, if you're squatting, to at least parallel, or straightening your arms all the way when you're doing an overhead press. Like follow through with the right move. Moving through the full range of motion with each rep is going to ensure that you're putting your muscles under an adequate level of stress that they need to develop. So it's possible to build muscle with light weights as long as you challenge with enough volume, train frequently enough, eat enough calories, especially your protein, and always use proper form. So slow down your lifts, increase your time under tension, and those are excellent ways to build muscle with light weights. Do we have any questions? I hope this was super interesting. Hey, Karen, I'm glad to share. Yeah, and I brought this topic up because of the fact that I know many people get really shredded doing workouts that with lighter weights, but there is a system to it. Like you have to still be eating like you're building or using heavier weights, and you have to be training to failure in some way. So anyway, any questions you guys have, just comment below. I do appreciate your attention today, and very excited to share this with you. Hope it was helpful, and I will see you tomorrow.